Thank you all for being here on time. I'm gonna go ahead and take a quick photograph of the, what would you call us, the guest list? No, everyone who's here. Let's make sure you all get credit for being here. All right. Great. Okay, let's go ahead and get started with today's lesson, Unit 4, Lesson 3, talking about closing a project. Before we do, though, Sophia is today's assistant instructor. Sophia, how are you?
I'm doing well, Eric. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for asking. Why don't we start off by you telling us a little bit about yourself?
I have a presentation. Should I pull it up?
Please, by all means.
Okay. Let's go okay. Okay, so do you still want to ask me or should I just
You can go ahead and present. This is great. This makes my job easy.
So a little bit about me. I'm originally from Ithaca, New York, and I moved to the Bronx about a year and a half ago now. I joined Europe to become a more well-rounded individual, to network, and to be able to, get a good job and support myself in my future goals. And I don't know if it's a fun fact, but a fact about me is that I actually love to play tennis, and I was on the varsity tennis team since 8th grade at my school. Um, okay, my question to you all is, what is your biggest pet peeve? I will go first. Mine is literally anybody who chews food with their mouth open. I cannot stand that. Or like if they're like smacking their gum or whatever, it's so annoying to me.
I love that. What's your biggest pet peeve? So in the chat box, Sophia has hers. So what do you do, Sophia, when you're like out to eat with somebody and they start smacking their lips? Like, do you just like die inside, or do you like tell them to close their mouth, or what do you do?
It depends who it is. Like if it's
Okay.
if it's someone who I don't know that well, who like, I don't want to roast them and be mean, then I'll
Right.
probably try to ignore it and die inside, like you said. But if it's a close friend or, like family member, whoever, like I'll definitely tell them like close your damn mouth.
Yeah, please. You're eating like a toddler. Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely a pet peeve for sure. My pet peeve is when people like complain, or like they're always negative about everything. When like you say something, oh, that would never work, or oh, I hate that, or oh my gosh, it's so hot today. Oh my gosh, it's so cold today. Oh my god, you know what I mean? Like this town is so crazy. This town is so boring. It's
Yeah.
like, dude, just like, can you just like be happy? Like just chill out. Like just be grateful. So looks like some of the people in the chat box. Yes, Dondre, having to repeat yourself multiple times. Dondre, never become a teacher then, because that's in my job description to repeat myself multiple times. Fake people, Angie says, yes, for sure. Alexander clipping nails on the subway. That's pretty gross.
Ooh,
Yeah,
ew.
that's pretty spicy. Brian says he agrees with Sophia. No time for negative energy. People who always think their work is shit, but it's better than mine. Okay. Yeah, that can be very frustrating. People who leave their table a mess at restaurants. Interesting, Chelsea. Yeah, that could be a pet peeve. When I was growing up, my mom was a waitress in an Italian restaurant, and she used to like come home and always complain about how sloppy people would leave their tables after they would eat. Um, Definitely very annoying. Awesome. Well, that's a really good question, Sophia. Thank you so much for sharing and for sharing about your background and tennis. That is a very fun fact. Do you watch tennis as well, or just play?
My parents had tennis on a lot, like as I was growing up. I don't really watch it myself now,
Right.
but like if I'm visiting them, if they have it on and they have it on, like I'm definitely watching it.
Awesome. Awesome. Yeah, I remember when Sophia told me that she was from Ithaca, and I also live in the Bronx too, just like she does. And I was like, wait, why'd you leave Ithaca to come to the Bronx? Like Ithaca's like such a beautiful town. But it's just, what do you want? What do you want? Do you want like a waterfalls all day and gorges, or do you want to, live in what Randy said a day or two ago, the greatest place on earth? I mean, it's a no-brainer, right? Tyrell's like, questionable. Yeah, culture change for sure. Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely is
it
that.
was for sure.
Do you feel like at ease now living in the city, Chelsea? I mean, I'm sorry, Sophia, or do you still feel like this is a big difference what I'm used to?
Um, this might sound, really sad, but I honestly still get really anxious almost every time I have to take the train, just because like I feel comfortable, I feel confident that I know I can get where I have to go, but like I don't know, it's just something about like, I'm just still not quite used to it, and
Hmm.
I don't know, like yeah, but for the most part, I think the cultural shock, like I enjoy it a lot. Like, I've gotten used to everything, and like when I first moved, like I was living near the Yankee Stadium
Hmm.
on like 167, and that was just like crazy because
Yeah.
the closest place I could go shopping, like was a very like Dominican area, and like
Hmm.
I was still working on my Spanish a lot, and like I was just always nervous like that I
Right.
communicate with people, but like people know English too, obviously.
Of course. Of course. Yeah. Yeah. So 167 and what? What was your cross street? Do you remember when you first moved here?
I was on Sheridan Avenue.
Okay. Yeah, that definitely is a busy area for sure.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, I was gonna say you're gonna get kicked out of this chat, Tyrell. You're gonna get an automatic 0. Tyrell was not there that day. Infractions. All right, Sophia. Well, thank you so much for sharing. Really appreciate that. And also, obviously, for you, like you moved here and then shortly thereafter the lockdown started, so you didn't get a chance to really enjoy as much. But you'll get the hang of it, and then you'll go back to Ithaca and you'll have culture shock in Ithaca. That's what happens to me every time I go back to PA. I remember like going back to PA one time and like me and my family went out to eat, and I was like, wow, there's like a lot of white people here. My mom's like, yeah, and so are you, Eric. And I was like, oh yeah. So, anyways, with that being said, here's your morning scenario. I want you to take a moment, read it, and then when you think you know what you would say, either raise your hand, put it in the chat box, and let's talk about it. I'll give you about 2 minutes to kind of read it, digest it, and we'll make it happen. And once again, if no one raises their hand, I get to just call on somebody, which is a lot of fun. Go ahead. All right, 30 seconds.
It says the person contracted COVID-19 and will not be working for at least the next
2 weeks. Sorry, Alex. Next 2 weeks. So the person that's on your team cannot work for 2 weeks.
I actually have a question about that part.
Sure.
So, does that just mean he's not going to be in the office or just not working at all?
Not working at all.
Okay.
And I appreciate everybody saying the truth and be transparent. I love that. I do want to hear like what exactly like you're gonna say. Like these are gonna be my words to her when we meet for our stand-up meeting. There are about 15 more seconds. Then I see Dondre's hand. Dondre will go first, and then we'll tease this out a little bit more. All right, Mr. Dondre, you brave soul. Go ahead and unmute yourself, and let's hear what you're going to say to your VP when she thinks this is going to be done in 2 weeks and you haven't even started yet. How's this conversation going to go?
Okay, so excuse the way I put my sentences together. It's still pretty early, but I would say something along the lines of, like if it's in a meeting, I would be like, "Good morning, everybody. Today we're going to be discussing the project for Zoom.
Mm-hmm.
In all honesty, we haven't gotten very far in our project because of several setbacks. For example, we've had one of our team members contract COVID-19, and along with an update with Zoom, they want us to the fee is an additional $299, and therefore it's thrown off our budget completely. However, with these setbacks in mind, we are creating a whole new plan. We're creating a whole new charter, and we should be expected to be done within the next 3 weeks.
Excellent. Thank you, Dondre. Appreciate that. In the chat box, what was something about Dondre's response that was good, that was helpful, that if you were the VP of IT hearing that, you would say, okay, this makes sense. Thank you for the update. Anybody want to share in the chat box what you liked about Dondre's? Yes, transparency. He told the truth. He offered a solution, the problem and the solution. He gave an estimated time to solve the issue. Yes, perfect. He estimated his deadline. One thing I appreciate about Dondre is he did not make excuses. He did not say like it's, everyone else's fault. It's Zoom's fault. It's COVID-19's fault. It's my team member's fault. He just said these circumstances have arisen, and that was what we're going to do. So great job, Dondre. Chelsea, how would you address this if you were the project manager and this was your situation?
Okay, let me see.
Mhm.
Let's see. I'm thinking we have run into an issue with getting the project done within the time period you wanted. One of our, what exactly was the position again? Mass communications. One of the people in charge of mass communications has gotten COVID and won't be able to work for the next 2 weeks. As well as Zoom has a new feature that's going to be a little bit more costly, but I can definitely guarantee the project will be able to be done in the next 3 weeks.
Great. Now imagine that I'm that VP of IT, and I'm going to come back to you and say, well, listen, Chelsea, I appreciate that. And I'm sorry that your team member got sick. I hope that he or she is okay, but I really want this done in 2 weeks. So like, what can you do to get this done in the next 2 weeks? What's your plan of action?
I guess I would say spread the work out within the rest of the people in the project.
Great. So do you think that if you spread the work out evenly, you'll be able to get this done 2 weeks from today? Is that feasible? Yes. Okay. Great, Chelsea. So yeah, very much like Dondre. Yeah, and the new Zoom expense, we're just going to assume that we have the budget to cover that, because if the whole reason that we're updating our Zoom accounts is for increased security and the $299 per user is for that, then we're definitely going to go that route. So Chelsea says, yep, I'm going to get it done. I'm going to spread the work. So I appreciate that, Chelsea. Randy, do you have a question or a comment?
Yeah, because we already like allocated funds for the regular Zoom that we were going to upgrade to, do we actually need to upgrade to the $299 one?
Yeah, it's a good question. The thing of it is, we don't know enough details about what is this upgrade feature exactly. Is it worth the cost? But what do you think? Do you think if you were, evaluating this, what would be your, I don't know what knowledge you have of Zoom or the technology, but what would you imagine would be worth the $299 extra per user?
Honestly, it can't be that much if we, I don't know, maybe because I'm not a super IT guy,
right?
But it can't be that much if it's like a low cost, like $299. But if it's 2,500 people, I think we should, take the rough road and use the one that we had already planned on, and then later down the line upgrade, because if at this point we already knew what we were getting,
right?
So instead of paying the $299 or even looking for new money, we just take what we get.
Yeah, totally. And I mean, I'm not proficient in patches and upgrades and all that kind of stuff, so I can't really speak to if it would or would not be worth it. But I do know that, reality is like security on Zoom is a big issue for corporations and it has been for a very good while. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with Zoom bombing, but that's, the least of some people's problems. Coming in, seeing something gross is, it sucks, but it's not that big of a deal. When people get into Zoom meetings and they steal information and they steal data, that's a much bigger deal than, I don't know, seeing some weird thing on your screen. So yeah, it's just, you have to factor in what you think is worth it. Talk to your project sponsor, share with her, this is what we get for the fee that we were planning on paying. This is what we get if we do the upgrade. This is what my thoughts are, but I just want to make you aware. But like I said, I don't have enough knowledge to go into why some guy from the New Yorker got fired for exposing himself on Zoom by accident. Yeah, I see those stories a lot, and I'm like, come on, like that's not an accident. Like it's just like that's just weird. Like how you not, anyways, that's beside the point.
I think if it's an old guy and he's not used to like tech like that, I can see
Right.
why that could happen.
Yeah. I mean, okay. I don't know. I don't want
Like
to
this
talk
guy
about.
was like a guy who was writing since like the 60s.
Gotcha. And he just didn't know how the tech worked and got fired. Well, I guess if he's, old, at least he's close to retirement. So, all right, let's go ahead and talk about the last step in the life cycle of project management. Sophia, can you see my screen okay?
Yes.
Thank you. So your project is complete. There's one last step, closing. So raise your hand. What do you think closing is? And why do you think it's important in the life cycle of a project? Because for some people, they think it's kind of weird. Like, wait, your project it's done. Everything's finished. Why do we have to have one last step called a closing? So raise your hand, put it in the chat box. I'll rely on Sophia to help me with this section. But what do you think closing is? Let's start with that one first. So what do you think that is in the life cycle of a project? Sophia, can you just call on people in the order of their hands going up?
Yep. Dondre, you can go ahead.
I believe the closing is when the project is finished. However, you have a meeting with your team members to discuss what went well, what could have been better, and things along those lines. And honestly, I feel like this is very important because this can help streamline your other projects and make things go faster for next time.
Yes, excellent. Thank you, Dondre. Hit the nail on the head. Are there any other hands, Sophia?
Yep. Brian.
I agree with everything Dondre said, but also adding on to maybe going over like a final checklist with everybody to make sure that everything was everything was completed.
Excellent, Brian. Yeah, for sure. Because particularly if you have a very large scale project, what happens if something's still hanging loose that doesn't get accomplished? That's really important. Yeah, for sure. Any other aspects of a closing that you think that are important when you have that final meeting?
Can I add something?
Of course, Sophia.
Oh, actually, Yoel raised his hand. He can go. That's fine.
Thanks, Sophia. Something that I wanted to add to what Dondre said was that maybe it can build a relationship with whoever worked on the project, and it could build this relationship that will be beneficial for you in the future because you know that person was someone you could rely on. So
Yeah.
It's like a thank you, and it's like I'll call you later if I need you type of thing.
Right. Yeah, definitely. You keep that rapport because, it's like you work together. Sometimes you work on a project for years and then it's like, okay, we're done. And then you never talk to that person again. Like that's not awesome. So having a closing meeting to continue to build that relationship is so important. I love it, Yoel. So what were you going to add, Sophia?
I was just gonna add that maybe, I don't know if this was mentioned, but maybe part of the closing, could be like reflection and kind of like what could we improve on next time, if there is a next time, or just like self-reflection too, like what were my strengths, what were growth areas, like, what could I have done better?
Absolutely, Sophia. That's exactly right. That's a huge part of the closing is doing the conversation of what went well, what can we improve on, not only for your own growth and development, but for the next time a project comes along, your colleagues can look at your notes and realize, okay, let's avoid their mistakes. There's that quote that says, a smart person learns from their own mistakes. A smarter person learns from the mistakes of others. So this is an opportunity for you to learn from other people. What have they done? What have they found works and doesn't work? So it's a really critical step. And in project management, you don't want to skip it over. You don't want to say, okay, we're done. Bye, everybody. Thanks for your hard work. You do want to have this closing time where you discuss all the things that we just talked about. So what does it help you avoid doing? All of the things that you've already mentioned already, but this is this is some of the important ones that I want to raise. So Sophia already said that you're avoiding repeating mistakes. You have the final products are done. Obviously you want to make sure you identify the individuals or the teams who are going to tie up any loose ends if there are any loose ends. And then of course, if you have contractors, if you have outstanding payments, if you have just anything that needs to still get done, the project closure helps you avoid all those things that could happen if you just said, okay, looks like we're complete. See you guys later and have a nice day. The post-mortem, do you guys like my picture up there? Tried to find a spooky picture that wasn't too spicy. So the post-mortem, it's kind of a morbid term, but I think that it serves well. It's like the project's done, it's behind us, but let's have an honest conversation about how it went. So I want you to do me a favor in the chat box, A, B, C, D, E, or F. Which letter do you think is the most important question that you should be asking during the post-mortem? In the chat box, put in the letter that you think. Yeah, it's really good to ask this question once you're finished up a project. Let me know what you guys think. A, B, C, D, E, or F. Okay, I see that Angie put F. Angie, can you please unmute yourself and tell us why you think that's the most important question?
I feel like it's always good for you to think that you could improve into something, because when you know that you know something, you have a higher chance to make the mistake again. Maybe in the future for the project, it could save more money and more time.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you so much. You can save money and time for future projects for sure. And the thing of it is, I want to just be clear, there is no right or wrong answer with this. It's just, these are the questions you can be asking. I just want to hear from you what you think is the most critical. How about Tyrell, the man who likes to poo-poo on the Bronx? What do you think why do you think B is the most important question to ask?
B's really like, it entitles F and pretty much A too. So I feel like it's the most well-rounded question, because you can look at your overall project, differ the challenges and failures from the accomplishments and achievements, and then apply that to future projects.
Yes, absolutely. Well, the nice thing about project management is that even though projects ebb and flow, like what you're doing, a lot of the common elements remain the same. So yes, that's a great question, because what it does is it takes the common elements and you can transfer them to different types of projects. Thank you so much, Tyrell. And then the last thing you do, of course, is you celebrate, right? You worked really hard. You made it happen. So let's go ahead and have some fun. In the chat box, you're planning a celebration at the end of doing a really big project. Let's suppose the project took a year. Let's suppose it was 5 people on your team. It's finally done. You had the post-mortem meeting, and now you're going to celebrate. So in the chat box, what are you going to do to celebrate your team after this year-long project is complete? You and five others. Sophia says a nice dinner. I love it. So you guys have your post-mortem meeting. What went well? What can we improve on? Okay, now we're all going to go have a nice dinner. Sophia, where are you taking them for your nice dinner? Let's hear. What restaurant are you going to go to?
No idea. There's really cool. Well, actually, there's this really cool Korean place that's called Hangawi. That's like kind of fancy, but also like very like has a cool feng shui. I think that'd be a nice place.
Okay, yeah, there you go. So you guys all go out for Korean food to celebrate. Science, you say a non-mandatory party. Why do you make that distinction?
Well, some people might not want to go to a party immediately after completing this project, so just letting them go relax and celebrate on their own terms would be just something that would help them probably.
Science, I'm going to tell a funny story in regards to that, because you're exactly right. When I was earlier in my career, I took this like week-long training, and the trainers were terrible. like they were not good trainers. Like they were reading out of a notebook the whole entire time. They were not engaging. The trainings were 8 hours a day for 5 days. It was myself, I think, and 5 and 6 other people in the training room. And when the training was done, they said, okay, guys, we're going to go downstairs and have happy hour and we're going to pay for it. Who wants to come? Nobody came. Not a single person went because they were like, wait, I just spent 40 hours with you and I've been bored the whole entire time. And even though there's free food and drinks, I'm still not coming. And it was so awkward because they were like going around the room and they're like, hey, are you coming, John? No. Are you coming, Bill? No. Are you coming, Jane? No. So like nobody went. So yes, a non-mandatory party. I love it. We're science. Randy Borden, you're taking a trip with your folks. Man, okay. Where are you guys going? To Boston? Did Randy take his own trip right now? Is he not there?
No, I'm here. I'm sorry. My computer mic is weird.
It's okay.
Somewhere cool, like the Poconos or wine tasting or stuff like that.
Yeah, there you go. So like maybe like a 1 day getaway or something like that. Like cool. We're gonna leave Friday, come back Saturday.
Exactly.
Love it. All right. Wow. All right. I want to be on your team when you become a project manager, Randy. That sounds like fun. So Angie says extra money, like a bonus, an office party. I would go for the free food. It must have been really bad. It was really bad, Yoel. It was like the most awkward week of my life. And when they went around and said, we're going to buy food and drinks for everybody, and everybody said no, I was like, yeah, please let me go home. I need to go home. So excellent. Yeah. So you want to celebrate because, and this is the other thing about it is it's really good to celebrate because down the road, maybe a year, maybe 2 years, maybe 5 years, you may have another project. And if you really treat your team well, what Randy says, we're all going to go to the Poconos or go wine tasting upstate. And it's time for another project. And Randy calls and says, hey, I'm doing another project. You want to be on our team? What am I going to remember? Am I going to remember that stressful deliverable that I had to get done where I had to work late one night or over the weekend? Probably not. I'm probably going to remember the time that we all hung out for the weekend, had a nice time, and be like, of course, Randy, I'll join your team. That'd be great. Let's make it happen again. So celebration is an important aspect of the closure of a project. All right. It's 9:28. I got a short little video for you guys to take a look at about closing a project. Let's come back in 10 minutes. Also, this is your time to use the bathroom as well. 9:38. See you soon. Thanks. All right, it is 9:38. Please come back on camera if you are able. One quick thing I want to say, if you are not aware of this, in this class, 10% of your final grade is class participation. I find in the virtual space, it's very easy for the same, 4 or 5 people just to say everything. That's just not only speaking out large, but also in the chat box, raising their hand, all that good stuff. In my last mod, there was probably about 10 students who actually got a 0 on class participation because they never said anything, never said anything in the chat box, never said anything in the conversation. And I don't want that to happen to anybody here. So please, I encourage you, if I put something in the chat box, like write down take away in the chat and you don't write anything, it's just not a good look. So please do that. If I ask a question, and you know the answer, or you want to contribute something, please raise your hand. I just want to make sure that everybody gets, it's a very easy 10 points, 10% of your final grade. So if you have, a 90 or an 89 in class and you don't participate all semester, then you get 79 and you get a C, lowers the whole entire grade level. So just some food for thought. All right, so let's look at the chat box. Important to close to get paid. Yeah, Dondre, you don't want to finish a project and then realize, oh shoot, we forgot to pay that person. That's not great. Have signatures, ring consent, absolutely, for documentation purposes. Closing is the review period. Chels, absolutely. Archive the documentation. Yep, celebrating success goes a long way. Yep, precious. All projects have a start and end. Stakeholders approval. Yeah, Rasayan's very good observation. It's very similar to the first step, the initiation phase. in the early stages of execution, it's kind of like a curve that goes. I think a lot of project managers they struggle with this because they think, okay, we're done, let's just call it a day and see you later. But the closing is a critical part of the life cycle of project management. All right, we're gonna transition now to our last 30 minutes or so of class. You guys have a deliverable that's due tomorrow night on a catastrophic assurance. I also spent a little bit of time today kind of talking about that because sometimes projects go wrong. They go very wrong, where the consequences can be devastating. In fact, there was a story. I'm sure some of you might be aware of it, some of you may not be aware of it, but I think it's worth talking about the story of the General Slocum disaster. For those of you who don't know what that is, in 1904 here in New York City, there was about 1,500 people who aborted a ship down the Lower East Side of Manhattan that they were going to go out to Long Island and have a church potluck. It was a German Lutheran church. They all got onto this ship together to go out to have this potluck together on Long Island, and it turned into a really big disaster very quickly. Around 90th Street on the East River, the part of the ship caught on fire. The story goes that an 8-year-old boy went to go tell the captain of the ship, hey, there's a fire in the lamp room, and the captain of the ship ignored the 8-year-old boy and thought, oh, you just have an active imagination, whatever, let's just keep going. People think that it started off by a discarded cigarette, and with the straw, the oily rags, and the lamp oil, things started to go on fire. Within a few minutes, more and more parts of the ship were going on fire. So they started to get everybody off the ship. Turns out the crew had never even done a fire drill. They had no idea how to safely remove everybody from the ship. The lifeboats were tied up. They were inaccessible. You couldn't access the lifeboats. The life preservers were not up to code. One of the saddest things of the story was these mothers would tie up their children in a life preserver, toss them overboard, only to watch the life preserver disintegrate in the water and their child drown immediately. The majority of people in the early 1900s could not swim. Swimming pools were not common, so people would get into the water and they couldn't swim. Yeah, so it was a huge disaster. They said that I'm trying to look at my notes here. There was just not great. The ship burnt down in the East River. People died left and right. The final death count turns out was 1,021 people died. And that disaster was actually the largest loss of life in one day in New York City's history up until 9/11. And one interesting thing about it is I learned this when I went to the Lower East Side Tenement Museum. If you ever wondered why there's, a little Ireland, there's a little Italy, there's a Chinatown, there's a little Albania, there's basically a lot of little somethings in New York City, but there's no little Germany. You ever notice that? And the reason why is because of this, unfortunately, because of this disaster. A lot of people lost their life. That whole community was ravaged from that. And of course, World War II as well impacted that as well. It wasn't necessarily a time where you wanted to be proud of your German culture. If you know where North Brother Island is near the Bronx Shore, that's where people had died either by drowning or by fire. So yeah, it was a huge disaster and an opportunity where people should have done more project management. They should have trained their crew on fire drills. They should have had to make sure the life preservers worked. They should have made sure that they listened to that young boy who told the captain, hey, there's a fire. But they didn't. They ignored him. They thought he just has an active imagination. So yeah, that's when things go wrong. So needless to say, when project management is not done right, there can be disasters. So this is what I'm going to do. I want you to remember your room number because I'm going to give you a scenario where you have to go with your team and you have to report out why things went wrong with this project. So remember your number. I know you guys can do it. You're all smart people. So group 1, Angie, Chelsea, Randy. Group 2, Alex, Jose, Yoel. Group 3, Justice for Science, Tyrell. Group 4, Brian, Soraya, Sophia. Group 5, Dondre Precious Renish. All right. Now I'm going to go ahead and give you your scenarios. And yes, Alex, obviously, during World War II, if you were German, they were not very vocal about being German in this country. Oh, I put
Yeah,
the
you were
Andrew.
actually Swedish.
You're actually Swedish, yeah, exactly. Good one. So there you go. So there's the groups. Everyone knows the group number. So I want you to spend about 10 minutes researching what went wrong with this project. And then I want you to designate just one person, because we have 5 groups. One person is going to report out like what went wrong, just like what I did with the General Slocum disaster. You're going to do it as well. I'm not going to have everybody share. Please don't make a PowerPoint. We don't have time for that today. Just spend about 10 minutes researching it, get your talking points aligned, and then come back in 10 minutes and one person share out for 1 minute what went wrong with the project. Any questions? All right. Adios. Welcome back. Welcome back. All right. Group 1, that was Angie, Chelsea, and Randy. Who is your spokesperson?
I am.
All right. Tell us what went wrong with the new Coke in 1985.
Okay, so the problem was that Pepsi, which was another company, they came with a different kind of flavor, and they did like an experiment, and people actually find out that they like the taste of Pepsi. So Coca-Cola wanted to change their flavor to make the customers like it more, because they wanted to be greedy. They didn't want to share the market with another company, and they convinced the CEO to change the recipe. So they actually find this recipe. They put the old one into the bowl of the bank. And when they started to produce the new Coke, people start finding out that they didn't actually like that flavor, that they wanted the old Coke back. And then they start going crazy. Even one customer said that he preferred the American flag to be born in front of him than to keep on drinking the other Coke. So then when they start seeing that people actually became really anxious and aggressive, they decided to change it back. And even though it was a bad move, because it took like 79 days for them to change it, it was actually pretty good. It actually came out as something good, because people felt really attached to the old recipe. It gave them free advertisement, and Coke stayed #1 company of the soft drink.
Wow, excellent job, Angie. That's going to be a very hard act to follow. Appreciate that. And now you know, if you ever see on a can of Coke, Coca-Cola Classic, that's why it says that, because of all this. They tried to make a new Coke about 30 plus years ago, and people, I guess, were very upset. So they wanted their old Coke back. Thank you, group. Group 2, Alex, Jose, Yoel, talking about the Apple Newton. Who is your spokesperson?
I'll go.
Yes, sir.
The Apple Newton was supposed to be a new product released by Apple over 30 years ago. It was supposed to be a personal digital assistant. The device would it could take notes, it could store contacts, it could manage calendars, it could send fax, and even translate like handwritten things into text. So basically anything a modern Android phone could do nowadays. But this was after Steve Jobs left, so this wasn't Steve Jobs' idea. What was wrong with it though? The user space was very limited on the Newton. It had around 140 KBs, which I don't know what KBs are, but in the article it mentioned that this was
Kilobytes, very small.
Yeah, they said it was laughable compared to the 8 GB iPhone. So I'm like, oh, that's ridiculous, because I remember the 8 GB iPhone and you couldn't really have anything on it. The pricing was off. I mean, having a computer back in the 90s and the 80s was expensive in itself, but the biggest, they had 3 models. The biggest model will cost up to $5,000, and the mid-sized model will cost a little less than 2,000, and the smallest model will cost, which was the junior, it was cost 500. And there was like a division between the company because some of them would lean more towards having a larger model versus the other people that wanted to have a much smaller model. Another thing that was wrong was the handwriting. When you write things, it will instead of translating, it will come up with scribbles and stuff like that. So it'll be it wasn't effective.
And Apple claimed that this is their exact claim, that it could take notes as easily as a piece of paper. But meanwhile, you would write something and it's supposed to recognize it, and it would come out as just a jumble of words. So this led it to be mocked in pop culture by The Simpsons and a comic strip called Doonesbury. And also, it was expected to sell 1 million in the first year, but it only sold 50,000. So when Jobs came back in 1997, by the way, it was released in 1993 as the Newton Personal Digital Assistant, PDA. And Jobs came back in 1997 and he killed it because he didn't like it.
There you go.
So definitely a failed project for sure. Well, thank you, Jose. Thank you, Alex. Thank you, Group 2, for that. It's always an interesting story when people put a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of investment into something only to have it, not quite work out. So that's why it's important to do your due diligence and planning. All right. Thank you, Group. Group 3, Justice for Science, Tyrell, talking to us about the Microsoft Bob. Who is your spokesperson?
Would be I.
Go ahead,
So Microsoft Bob was a computer software product that was meant to assist people in using Microsoft Office applications. However, there were mostly 3 problems that attributed to its failure. Firstly, people didn't really like Bob. Microsoft made the mistake of appealing to the wrong audience, which was mostly children and the lovers of cuteness. Given how Bob presented himself or itself, people felt that Bob was a bit too juvenile for their tastes. Secondly, in a similar fashion, people didn't really want a Bob. They didn't really want an assistant. This was mostly beginners who felt that they wanted to be left alone when they worked with Microsoft Office applications so that they learned themselves instead of having an assistant work with them all the time. And then the third thing is that at around the same time, Apple had released its Macintosh, which did a great deal to bring the market to itself. So in that sense, the Microsoft Bob sort of lost in competition to the Microsoft Apple Macintosh.
Thank you so much for science. Thank you so much, Group 3. Yep, the Microsoft Bob. If you never heard of it, that's the reason why it never really took off. Okay, Group 4, Brian, Soraya, Sophia. Who is your spokesperson?
I am.
Go
Okay.
ahead, Soraya.
So let me tell you guys about the Arch Deluxe. Okay, I'm sure you've never heard of it, and there's a reason why. So the Arch Deluxe. First, let's talk about how they missed with the name. It should have definitely been called a McArch or something like that, but okay. Well, it was supposed to be like a sandwich that was marketed towards adults, because you know how McDonald's is usually, for kids or young people, not really adults. Well, they made a sandwich specifically for adults, and funny thing is, the sandwich was gross. Like, absolutely disgusting, nothing like they've made before. Definitely not a Big Mac. It was nasty, people hated it, and hated it so bad to the point where they called, what did they say? The Arch Deluxe really sucks. Like, how do you make a chant for a song? Like, a chant for a sandwich? That's crazy. And despite McDonald's putting a lot of money into the marketing and the campaigning of this product, it ended up being one of the most expensive flops in McDonald's history, which is why we do not hear about the Arch Deluxe today. You would have to Google that because it's a very embarrassing blemish in their time. But nonetheless, it happened. So I wanted to tell you guys about it. But yeah, that's really it.
Awesome. Thank you, Soraya. Thank you, Group. Yes, you're absolutely right, Soraya. This is why nobody ever heard of it, because it was a failed product. Everyone thought, let's make a sandwich for adults, because most of our clientele are children and teenagers and people that are younger. Let's make a sophisticated sandwich. And yeah, Arch Deluxe really sucks. That's
What was on the sandwich?
Oh yeah, what was the problem with either Sarai or anybody else? What made the sandwich so gross?
I'm looking at the ingredients and I don't understand why they put this together in such a way. Like it's like
It was a modified sauce. Like they put more mustard and they just called it. They tailored it as like a special sauce for adults, which in itself sounded really weird.
yeah, and the sauce didn't hit. Just to say, like, if you look up this sandwich, you would just see like it's the normal stuff they put on a sandwich, but I don't know. It just doesn't even look good. It looks crazy.
I
Well,
feel
there
like
you
it
go.
looks like a
Oh, go ahead.
McDonald's sandwich, just with a different sauce. To be honest.
Well, and
Wait,
also,
what's the meat?
what was the meat? Group 4. We're all very curious now.
It's beef.
It was beef.
It was beef, and Sophia also put in the chat. It was very expensive too,
and bacon too.
and bacon. So it's beef, and it was a sandwich. It just had a different sauce. That was not very good and expensive. It sounds. Alex says, "I want one." All right, Alex, you go to McDonald's and order an Arch Deluxe, and let us know how that shakes out for you. All right. Group 5. Dondre, Precious, Renish. The Amazon Fire Phone. Just, of all of these, this is the only one I remember. I remember when this product came out 6 years ago. So I'm curious to hear what you guys dug up with. So who's your spokesperson?
That's gonna have to be me. I wrote down 3 bullet points that was like the main reasons why they back in 2014 the Amazon Fire Phone did not succeed very well. So the first one was that the Fire Phones was limited to only Amazon-based apps. So you couldn't download Gmail, you couldn't download Facebook or anything of that matter. Another one is that they charged a lot of money for the phone and even more if you went on a contract. So the phone itself was, I believe, like $130 to $150. And if you went on a contract, it was over $200. And the third one was that they added this like 3D feature, but like literally nobody cared about it simply because you couldn't download the necessary apps that you need. And not everybody uses every single Amazon-based app. Like I feel like most of us use it only for Amazon Prime and that's about it. But it was all just Amazon-based, like Amazon Music, Amazon TV, and just stuff like that. So I feel like those was the 3 main things that why the Amazon Fire Phone failed back in 2014.
Excellent. Thank you, Precious. Thank you, group. So what we just did for the last 20 minutes or so, that's exactly what you need to do for your essay that's due tomorrow night. So just find a project that failed, and go ahead and research it, write a short essay on it. Some of you have already done it, which is fine. And some people always ask, oh, can I do one of the 5 we talked about? Sure, why not? Go ahead. If that's what you want to do. If you're like, oh, I'm really interested in the McDonald's Arch Deluxe, I want to study it more, then by all means, go right ahead. So, Sophia, thank you for being a great assistant instructor today. Do you mind pulling up your slide with our deliverables?
Yes, I'm doing that right now. Okay, so let me see here, and you can add on if I missed anything, but so the implementation discussion board, you have to respond to at least 2 posts by Thursday at 11:59 p.m. You forgot about San Francisco scenario essay due Wednesday today at 11:59 p.m. and the catastrophic quality assurance, which is due Thursday at 11:59 p.m. And some announcements. There is no class on Thursday, but Eric's having an optional study group from 9 a.m. to 10 a.m., which will be recorded. And then his midterm will be posted Thursday and will be due by Sunday at 11:59 p.m.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Sophia. Thank you so much, everybody. Also, one last quick note is I will email you guys tomorrow, like when the midterm gets posted. My goal is to post it around the middle of the day, around lunchtime. But I'll email you and say, okay, the midterm's live. Go ahead and take it. And that is due by Sunday, 11:59 p.m. Guys, have a wonderful weekend. If I don't see you tomorrow at the study group, and see you next week. Bye.
Hi, Eric.
Do you have a question, Justice?
No.
All right. Have a great day.